Is this going live?
It's going live any moment now.
Okay.
All right, Warrior Sage family, Warrior Sages everywhere around the world. I want to introduce you to someone who's very special to me. This is my own personal guide and coach that I call upon for when I need to move through things, got obstacles. Recently, I reached out to Michelle and I worked on um, a family dynamic thing that I saw going back so many generations that was affecting me right now, my family, my children, and such. And what was very profound about the whole experience was that I was able to see my life and bring it all together in such a powerful way that has stuck. And every time I've been with Michelle and she's guided me, it's been just a profound experience of self-discovery, awakening, deepening my whole awareness of my inner psychological terrain. And most importantly, it's I'm able to move forward without obstacles. So thank you for being here with us, Michelle. I very much admire you, very much respect you for the master you are, not only as your surname, and you're a very humble individual, but by your being. So thanks for being here with us.
Thank you. It's a blessing to get to do the work I do, and especially to get to do it with people like you.
So, before I came on, I said, let's just shoot the shit.
Right.
And I thought, every time I'm with you, it's a very spontaneous experience. And I really appreciate that about you. But what I've noticed is that you're very aware. Now, in your work, can you talk about, and right now, the audience here are Warrior Sages, folks who are in leadership positions. They're feeling a calling to support the world in a more powerful way, individually, in a bit, whatever way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the context. What is awareness to you, and how can we cultivate it?
By awareness, do you mean, what do you mean by awareness? Because that can mean
When you're with me, it's like whether you're looking at me directly, not like you're so tuned in, you're very aware. And I notice you get a lot of insight and knowledge from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fairly still in my demeanor, but you catch the subtlety. So that's what I mean by awareness, Theo.
Because in my everyday life, my partner would tell you I can be awfully clueless. I'll say, oh, look, that store went out of business. And my partner will say, yeah, a year ago. So, but when I'm working, the attention is there instead of in my head where it is often when I'm not working. And there is so much information coming off people, not just in what they say, but in communication coming off their body, energetic communication, kind of communication on subspace channels. We're so much more connected than we realize. And so the words are actually the smallest part of communication. I think they did a study in UCLA. They said something like 55% of communication is body language and movement. 38% is voice tone, speed, and volume. Only 7% of communication is the actual words. And so a lot of the training that I received was how to pay attention to all the communication, not just the words.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Michelle, I'd love you to share a little bit about how you got into this, like serving others world, being a guide.
Well, I was looking for a long time. I did a lot of wandering in the desert, sometimes metaphorically and sometimes actually, because I was on expedition for a year, because I was looking for something that really had meaning. So I did a lot of odd jobs, basically. I taught environmental ed. I coached softball in Maine. I painted houses. I painted scenery off Broadway. I did a whole bunch of different stuff. But I realized later, part of it was because I just wasn't yet old enough to do the work that I do now. I found this work when I was 32. And I don't think I could have done it before that. I just wasn't mature enough. I just hadn't seen enough to be able to work with people. So about as soon as I was able, I went to a free seminar of somebody who's doing the kind of work that I mostly do with people. And I almost left the seminar. There was only two of us in this cavernous room.
Now, this is neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah, right? NLP, yeah. World's worst name, by the way. It's about as warm and fuzzy as National Socialist Party. But but there were these two guys doing this, and it was just me and this one other person, and I almost left because they were waiting for somebody else to show up, and I looked at the price of the course and I thought, there's no way I can do this. But the other person grabbed me. She said, don't leave. She didn't want to be like the only person in this ginormous auditorium that these guys were talking to. And so they started, and within half an hour, I knew it was what I wanted to do. And I thought, there's got to be a way. And you know, there's always a way. So here I am. I was working for them within a year, not just taking the training, but actually within a year, I was on their staff.
So you've been at guiding, coaching, mentoring for how many years now?
25 more. Yeah, about 25.
I know we're all individuals.
Mm.
Are there patterns that you see from working throughout these years that are the fundamental obstacle patterns in our consciousness?
Yeah. There's three really big ones that I come across all the time, whether I'm working with somebody on money or on relationship or on their sense of self or their health. The three biggest things are unconscious beliefs, like beliefs that we don't even know we have, or if we do know we have them, we don't know how to change them. Because there is this thought that, oh, I can just decide to believe something differently. But that's like saying, oh, I don't like the software my computer's running. I'll just decide in my head it should run differently and expecting the computer to run differently. It doesn't work that way.
Or even change my language. I'm going to now speak another language and let go of my old. It's there.
Right. And it doesn't work because the language that your beliefs are written in is not English or Spanish or, Punjabi. It's none of those. So it's unconscious beliefs. People's sense of their own worth is the second one. And this is enormous. I meet almost nobody who has a really robust sense of their worth. And it could partly be the circles I travel in. But frankly, somebody whose sense of worth is really strong probably isn't going to need the kind of work I do. But very few of us have a really genuine sense of our worth. We so undervalue and estimate ourselves. And this applies for people who are in leadership positions and make a lot of money as well.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you attain to. There's always that's what I've noticed working with you, right? Mm-hmm. I first came to you from wanting to experience your magic with money, which is actually your book.
Oh, yeah.
Magic.
Yeah.
Which we'll share about a little later, which is just a beautiful gem. And it's a little magical gem. You go through it and it's like.
I was very careful to make it very easy to read and yet still have all the magic in it. So yeah.
It's potent and simple and so usable, like right off the bat. That's what I love about it. Anyways, you talked about unconscious belief, our sense of self-worth. And what was the last one?
The third one is the one that the least number of people know about and the most people that are stuck with. So it's the least known and the hardest thing to shift and the biggest block any of us face. And that's something called unconscious family loyalties.
Got it.
This is often generational loyalties as well. These are ways in which we either sabotage ourselves or limit ourselves in order to be like or loyal to the people we come from. And it's deeply unconscious. I was working with a guy in Australia, and he said to me, it's like I'm trying to get my business to fail. And he said that, and I thought, whose business failed? So I asked him, and he went, oh, my dad's. Like he'd never put that together, Yes. I had another guy had a terrible gambling problem. And he said to me, it's like I'm trying to lose my house. And so I said, who lost their house? And he said, nobody. But when I did a little history, his family was Mexican. They came to the US in the 30s, and they were living in a small farm outside of LA. In 1942, after Pearl Harbor, they lived next door to a Japanese family. And after Pearl Harbor, that Japanese family was taken away, put in what did they call them?
Internment camps.
Internment camps, thank you. And so his family got their house. Like they'd been friends, it wasn't malicious, but they profited from that family's loss.
Yes.
So 70 years later, he was trying to pay it back by losing his. Now, it doesn't help But these are deep unconscious motivations. They're the hardest thing to get people to let go of. I had somebody come to see me once, and I was pointing out all the ways that she was keeping herself stuck on behalf of someone in her family. And she said, that's interesting, because I worked with this native healer who said that 60% of the pain people carry is not their own. And I said, I think that's a conservative estimate. I actually think it's higher.
Wow.
And which is what makes it so hard to change, because it's not yours. You take on somebody else's pain, you can't change it. It makes it incredibly.
And many of us have been imprinted that, to feel bad with other people, to feel bad for other people, but not allow ourselves to feel good if others aren't feeling good.
Right.
That's a core loyalty. If you're down, I'm down with you.
Yes, it's an expression of love. And how sad, right?
Yeah.
It's not just an eye for an eye. It's, oh, you lost your eye? Okay, let me get rid of mine.
Yeah. That's what you do with your enemy, is eye for an eye. What you do, that's with a foe. With family, it's take my eye because you lost your eye.
Yeah.
So you lose both eyes.
Right. Yes. Because the other person's like, I can't do anything with this. Right. Yeah.
It was a really tough moment in my life when I had this experience was, in the Indian family dynamics, the parents sacrifice everything for their children. Yes. And it's a noble, spiritual, altruistic ideal.
Yes.
But it's not always operating from that place, but we always say, I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for you. I'm doing everything for you. And then one day I realized, when I had my children, Suzanne and I realized my parents had this tape. I'm doing this all for you. And then I just started saying, thinking that and I went, no, I just sort of caught it. And I recognized it not as my origin. It was coming from my parents. And then I went, if I now sacrifice my life for the purpose of them having their own life, not so they sacrifice their life, so they sacrifice. So I got it. I have to find the fulfillment in my life to be the demonstration, the model, the call to do the same, the permission.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that switched everything.
Yeah. Somebody's got to be willing to be happy. It's like if there's a buffet, it's like somebody's got to be the first person to take some. We can't all just stand around waiting for.
What is that nature that would want us to defend and hold that part of us that doesn't like others being happy? Like that, with that type of spite or that.
Well, what that comes from, envy, right? Envy. I remember I saw this shaman speak once. She was like the 7th in her lineage to be a shaman. And she came and spoke at the house of somebody in Sebastopol, this little town that I live in Northern California, this little piece of paradise. And she talked about, through an interpreter, she talked about the, causes of disease. And she was anger, sadness, fear. I forget, there was one more. And then she said envy. And right there, she kind of lost the crowd. Like I felt it happen. I could feel like the collective group kind of write her off as backwards, because in Sebastopol, everyone's living a pretty good life. There's not a lot of envy because people have what they want. They're creating what they want. Like everybody's belly is full. Everybody's got a nice place to live. So they kind of dismissed her based on that. And when we were leaving, no one would even make eye contact with her. But I mean, this woman's comes from a lineage, she's a healer. So I just wanted to thank her on the way out. She took my hands. She said something I still don't know to this day what it is, but I could tell it was a blessing. And I felt something happen. And I felt great for 2 weeks. I mean, obviously this woman had something, but in the culture she's dealing with, envy is a real thing. And in a lot of actually South American and Central American cultures, it's still a huge deal because people don't have the experience that they can create what they want.
Yes.
And so they
feel very limited and cramped by their inability or their of creating.
And so if you can't create what you want and you see somebody else with it, well, that's just continually irritating. And you can either make yourself wrong or make them wrong. right? This is sort of where human beings end up. So the good news about the big shifts that are coming for the planet, as more and more people start to really understand at a visceral level that no, you can have what you want, you can create beauty, you can create abundance, you can create magic, then envy begins to be less and less prevalent. Spite becomes less and less prevalent. Because if there's a full buffet that everybody has access to, like you're not feeling spite towards people who are taking what they want, because you can take what you want too, right? Spite and envy only happen when you can't have what you want and others have it, or you think you can't, right? That's why for me, when I was asked to create the money magic workshop, I had like, it was not a no-brainer. Like, it was like asking Vladimir Putin to create a scrapbooking workshop. Like, it's like, you'd be like, what? Because I had no relationship to money. But what I did know was about change. And so I decided to play to my strengths. Once I realized, oh, I just said yes to creating a money class, I thought I'll just focus it all on change. And so I forgot where I got into this. But being able to give people this, what I wanted to teach was a spiritual class. What I got was a 2-day workshop on money. And it has turned out to be the most spiritual thing I do.
Wow.
Because it's connecting people with their ability to create, their ability to have what they want, their ability to be whole and happy, not just through money. It's the money is a consequence of getting your beliefs shifted and your sense of worth shifted and your family loyalties kind of released, the unuseful ones, right? As a
Did you say
consequence
that
of that.
that's a very tight chain in all those areas? Their sense of self-worth, these particular emotions that you talked about, their unconscious beliefs, their unconscious family loyalties, that money is like one of the core components of that? Or like the
Well, money is basically an outpicturing of two things: your beliefs about like how safe you are in the world, like how much control you have, how safe you are, and also how like happy you're allowed to be, like how much you're allowed to have what you want and thrive.
wow. Wow.
Yeah, because most of your beliefs about money are in place by age 3.
By 3.
By 3 years old. Most of them done by 6. They're pretty much all done. So people will say to me, well, I think this happened in my 20s. It's like, no, by your 20s, this was old news, because your neurology, your belief structure is set in place between 3 and 6 years old. And so kids start out like they'll, even floating in the womb, there's no cognition, there's no tissue up here that's really thinking, but there's experience, like the little floating around there in the womb. If mom or dad is tense, like that little floating organism feels that tension, and there's no thought, but there's an association of, oh, I'm here and it feels tense, it feels scary, it feels dangerous. Life must be scary, life must be dangerous, I must be difficult, I must be too much, etc. Like all these associations can start long before there's any thought about money or any conscious processing. It just starts out as, oh, it's hard here. And those become beliefs.
So now this is the world we live in now. So we have what we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first place someone can start to look at regarding their money? And if there's a feeling of trappedness or not enoughness, what's the first place that we can start in unraveling and expanding this?
Well, it depends on what you want, right? Because different people want different things. If there's something that you want and you've wanted it for a little while, like it's not a brand new, I thought it is yesterday. If there's something that you really want and you've wanted for a little bit and you don't already have it, then there are blocks in the way. When there aren't beliefs running counter to it, the stuff shows up right away. Like one of the things I've noticed is a consequence of having done this work for so long and having done a lot of it on myself. These days, if I actually want something and I get clear I want it, it shows up really quickly without me doing anything. Like the phone will ring. I don't have to make action lists. I don't have to, who do I know who, like people will come out of the woodwork to arrange this thing that I would like. It's very, very magical. If that doesn't happen, it usually lets me know, oh, I've got something in the way. So if you're not already creating what you want, and if it's not already kind of fun and easy, then there's stuff in the way, because it actually is supposed to be fun and easy. This whole thing about you have to work hard is a belief. It is not what's true.
Mhm.
And
My old
yeah,
teacher Stewie used to say, struggle is effort laced with negative emotion.
yeah. I mean, there's this whole idea, if it's hard, it makes, struggle makes you stronger. Not necessarily. If I have a house plant and I don't give it enough water and I put it in the oven for a while and I don't get it the light it needs, is that going to make that plant stronger? No, no, they do best when they have adequate sunlight and water and nutrients, right? People too. We do better when we can thrive. We are actually designed to create. You don't need to introduce struggle into the equation.
Beautiful. There's another, if you will, stickiness that I've experienced in so many people, and that's spirituality and money as two separate antagonistic camps.
Right.
Can you share about that, please?
Yeah, because I had that too. One of the things that happened when I designed the money magic workshop is I created all these different exercises, and then I tried them out on me first to make sure none of them caused unwanted water retention or spontaneous combustion. And so one of the exercises, I wanted to find out people's relationship to money. And so I created this exercise, and it's like spread like, you may have even done it, spread like wildfire since I started doing it, because it's very simple and very powerful. But I realized I had this sort of I am a spiritual person. I am not interested in something as base and crass as money. Like I had that kind of attitude.
Yes.
And one of the things that it became clear to me through doing this work is when you get all of people's fears and projections off of money, the energy of money always shows up the same way. It shows up as the energy of blessings. It truly does. It is the energy of blessings. It is one of the ways the universe wants to love us. And so many of those old cultural beliefs make no sense when you substitute the word blessings for money. Love of blessings is the root of all evil. That makes no sense. That makes no sense, right? Easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a blessed man to enter the kingdom of heaven. It makes no sense. And so I have come to realize it is, in fact, the energy of blessings. It is one of many ways the universe wants to bless us and love us.
I love that. It just so
And
feels
there are enough blessings for everybody. Like there is no zero sum on blessings. It's not like, well, we can bless you, but then we got to leave these guys out of it. That's not how it works. So I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you.
No, it's just beautiful. I'm just saying, it just relieves the tension, really opens up the magic of this life force, this aliveness, this natural.
Yeah. And it's hard to connect to like your inner divinity if you're, worried about paying the light bill, or, feeling shrouded by debt where you can't start the business that you feel called to do because of financial constraints. Like, who is that helping spiritually? Yeah.
Michelle, we're in this very unique, well, it's always been, I guess, a unique time in history if you're born in that very moment, but we got lots going on this planet.
Oh, yeah.
On an individual and on a macro level. I'd love to hear your reflection and expression of this.
It's funny because I had done an interview in February, which I listened to again in May. It was mid to late February. And in this interview, I was talking about how, in the last 10 years, as I was teaching internationally, I'd noticed a real acceleration of consciousness, including places like, Switzerland and Singapore and Hong Kong, places that, you don't normally associate with kind of spiritual awakening, right? These are big financial centers. And in the last 2 years, the evolution of consciousness had just been off the charts. And so I said in February of this year, of 2020, I said, this is so confusing. I have been feeling this massive acceleration of consciousness below the surface, and on top of the surface, nothing has changed. So that was mid-February, and then March came, and so here we are in like this huge remodel, right?
Yeah.
Huge remodel of humanity and of the planet and the globe. And the planet body itself is actually going through a rebalancing as well as we are. And so if you've ever done a remodel, you know that almost immediately it looks like utter chaos. Yeah. And it looks that way almost until it's all done, right? And then you've got something much better. This is a huge, huge remodel. And so what it's doing is it's flushing all the old stuff, you know, from the basement right up on the surface. All the fears and, you know, the Me Too stuff and the Black Lives Matter and all the fears that the virus is showing is showing all this fear of lack of control. You know, people feel like they have no control over their body, no control over the economy. There's just all of this old stuff being flushed right up to the surface where it can move.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's your sense? Where are we going with this?
To a place that's really beautiful. And again, it may not look like that yet. But one of the things that's been happening for me is because in the same way that before I could feel the acceleration that was happening, even though I hadn't seen the evidence of it yet, I can feel the beauty that is coming as a result of this. Yeah. True beauty. And the coming forth of the kind of the whole new paradigm, where we don't have to struggle, we don't have to suffer, we don't have to agree. That's fine, don't need to agree. But where actually, if everybody agreed, imagine 2 committee meetings, one where everybody on the committee thinks the same, and another where they all got different opinions. Like, which one is going to come up with more creative ideas, right? Yes. It's not the one where they all think the same, so we don't have to agree. But there is just such a deeper level of harmony and creation, and a working together that is coming in both the third dimension that we are used to calling reality, and especially the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th dimensions. Like the humanity is going to shift from existing as the focus of humanity is not going to be nearly so much in the 3-dimensional world. We're going to have at least a good footing in the 4th and 5th.
What does that mean? How does give a sense of that?
I may be above my pay grade. I will do my best. So the some things about the 3rd dimension that we take for granted. In 3-dimensional reality, things take time, and we experience time as a linear progression that goes in one direction, and we experience it as a constant, like that it always progresses at the same speed. It always goes from the present into the future, away from the past, right? That's how we experience linear time in the 3rd dimension. This is a very small subset of time. Like, this is the only place where you can find this experience of time is in this very limited 3rd dimensional reality, because time actually, any physicist will tell you, time does not exist. If you, so, you know, if you're listening to a recording, you have to listen to it in sequence for it to make sense, right?
Yes.
It's kind of how we do time right now.
Yes.
However, if you look at a picture, you can look at any part of the picture in any order, and still make sense out of it. Like you could look first at my eye and then my chin. You don't have to look at the ear first, right? It's all there, and you can take your time. This is
Yes.
actually how time works as well. Time is stretchable. You can move time. I've had to do that a few times in a workshop. And so is space. That's the other thing. Space is again not a linear constant. Space is movable. Space is when you leave the third dimension, the experience of space is entirely different. And we all exist in those other dimensions as well as in this one. The communication, there's a huge barrier. That barrier between is gonna get much thinner. And so the parts of us that exist in the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, sixth, seventh, and maybe even beyond, they're gonna be less separate. There's gonna be a lot more integration of those aspects of us, which will feel truly amazing. And it is in those other dimensions, we have a much more robust experience of ourselves as creators and our worth.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, it was kind of a rant there.
No, it's beautiful. I'm feeling the same. I'm feeling there's something that's so potent and powerful for all of us. And, my work is working where there's a lot of division, a lot of division, interference patterns in organizations and teams and leadership circles and such. And, we can see now just the intensity of opposing views, left and right, of course, being the biggest one in America, that's being inflamed. I'd love you to share about that, and how can we, if we're, regardless of what side we're on, how do we move beyond this craziness that we're constantly smashing down the others, trying to ridicule and demonize, and have to get on the bandwagon of continuously doing that? Like, how do we move beyond that, individually and collectively?
Yeah, I know. For me, I saw a fight erupt in my extended family, my actually in-laws. Several fights over like whose right was rightest, whose evidence was truest, whose opinions were truest. And somebody would load up all their evidence for why their beliefs were true, and then the other person would counter with all their evidence that their beliefs were true. And here's the thing, most people are starting to catch on that the internet, Google, etc., their algorithms, they will feed back to you what you put in, right? So when you do a Google search, you're not necessarily getting an objective search. You're getting one that's curated for you based on things you've put in. So you can find evidence to back almost anything on the internet, right?
Yes.
That is child's play to how your brain filters. Our brains are incredibly, none of us experience the same reality. None of us, because it comes through the filters of our beliefs. And I'm not just talking about, it may be rose-colored glasses. I mean, no, if you have a core belief, your system will be literally blind. It's called the reticular activating system. You will be literally unable to see things that are outside of your core beliefs. So anybody who is sure they are right, what they're showing you is not the truth with a capital T, but they're showing you their core beliefs. Right? Because quantum physics is very clear on this. Like, there's not necessarily any objective out there. There is only what we put out there. So trying to convince other people we are right. Well, there's a great Bashar quote. It's like looking in the mirror, something like, it's like looking in the mirror and trying to get the mirror to smile first.
Yes.
So what, personally, if I find myself getting a little riled up, I'll have to take a step back and I'll look at there. I wonder what belief is that I'm trying to assert. Because some part of me knows, even people that I am completely opposed to pretty much everything they do and stand for, I know that they also exist in fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh dimensional realms. I know they are also like, they are also creators and held dearly by the universe. It's good for me to remember. You can't always tell based on what somebody does. You can't judge the value of anybody's soul. We don't have anywhere near the breadth of perspective that would make that a good idea. So it's a good reminder for me.
Yeah. It's a good reminder for all of us. There's a lot of blurring of the lines that's happening in these viewpoints, which I think is actually quite good. Healthier or unhealthier versions could be argued. And this is also a time for belief systems which are extraordinarily wild in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see, if you will, labeled extreme forms of belief systems and the momentum that picks up in these runs. Can you share about that, and how do we become aware, like anything on that?
Well, there's a really beautiful saying in the Talmud, the Jewish holy book, that says we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. And so, for instance, there's somebody in my inner circle who, based on their own belief system, does not trust anyone in authority. And so almost any conspiracy theory for this person comes in at the ground level is like probably true, because there is this core distrust of people in authority. There are other people with this core trust in authority who, even if authority is acting incredibly badly, like their system will delete that or rationalize it, right?
Yes.
So even as much as we're pointing to it's about what's out there, we wouldn't be engaged in it if we didn't have matching choreography.
Yes.
I used to say, if I had only like 2 minutes, I didn't know somebody's history, and I needed to give you a kind of a sum up of probably what their growing up was like. I used to say, give me 2 minutes to ask them about their spiritual beliefs, and I can probably describe their growing up. Because it will be quite often those core beliefs about spirit get laid down really early in their one version or another of parents.
Can you give us an example?
Actually, I know Bert Hellinger, the fellow who I learned about how to do the family constellation work, that unconscious family loyalty work. This is a gross oversimplification, but he said that fundamentalists, and there are fundamentalists in many different religions, fundamentalists are basically trying to win the approval of a disapproving father, whether it's fundamentalist Christians or Muslims or whatever. He said Buddhists are disconnected from their mothers, hence the whole non-attachment thing, right? And he kind of went on a rant for a while about that. And again, that's a gross oversimplification, but there are things to that. For instance, whenever I hear somebody say, I want to make a difference in the world, that presupposes that you could not make a difference in the world. And if somebody has this experience of not making a difference in the world, this lets me know probably they weren't getting a lot of confirmation early on that yes, you're here and yes, you matter. Um, Neo-Reichians call it an impaired right to exist.
Yes.
So our stance about life is laid down really early. If there can be stuff that transcends that, but this is where most of our stuff starts.
So this is if we look at it, there's a lot here to excavate and integrate.
Mhm.
So those who are interested in that type of journey, how does one start or deepen if they've been on this path? And like these unconscious family, like how do we do that? What would you recommend as some paths and steps we can take?
Um, well, you can work with some one-on-one with somebody who does, the kind of work I do, because you can't really change your own beliefs. Like I've been doing this work for 25 years. When I have something come up, I go see somebody else because
Yes.
you will be blind to your own blind spots. So you can work with somebody one-on-one who knows what they're doing. I have both my money magic book, but also there's an online money magic class. We just had one start today. And sometimes so that's like a 10-week course with online activities.
And that's specifically around the mastery of money or money magic?
Well, that's what it's called, but you could actually do the change pieces around anything. Like they would work for a relationship, they would work for your health or your sense of well-being, right? They would work for anything. Same with the 2-day money magic workshop, which we're doing in October. So that's a way. I have lots of transformational workshops that I do. I have one around love called Clear Path to Love, right? We have the money magic. I teach other things that are more skills level, but I do the transformational workshops because it's a way for people to get a lot of change in a relatively short period. It's a little more cost effective than doing a bunch of one-on-one, but some people really like the one-on-one. So these are the ways I got the changes that have made my life work so well. I mean, I don't hope that doesn't sound arrogant. I don't mean that at all. I just things are really I feel really blessed, and because these changes allowed me to stop holding the blessings out. Right.
Beautiful. And what is your website, Michelle? How can our friends come to you?
Sure. Michelle Masters NLP, N like neuro, L like linguistic, P like programming.com.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up today, I want to ask, what is most important that you see right now that we can take on as a spiritual anchor practice?
Mm-hmm.
What's like right now for all of us?
Mm-hmm. One is there's a lot of fear mongering going on right now, which especially if you watch the news, it is designed to freak you out. This is what gets people's attention, right? And so I heard somebody very early in the pandemic, somebody was saying, suggesting to limit anxiety, people should limit their consumption of the news to an hour a day. And I was shocked. I'm like, people are watching an hour a day? Because it is curated. It is only bad things that they're going to show you. There might be one or two, but they are going to filter through thousands, if not millions of good things that are happening to show you scary, dangerous things. So it is so distorted, such a distorted picture of reality. So the amount that you can limit places that are trying to, your access to places that are trying to scare you or inflame you is ideal. Because that's what a lot of the media sites are designed to do, is scare or inflame. It's how they keep, their currency is attention, and that's what garners attention. And then anything that you can do that brings you a sense of peace or that just flat out makes you happy, the closer you are, the happier you are, the closer you are to the divine. That's where the divine lives, not so much in peace, but in joy, right?
Yes.
That's like the song of the universe. So anything that makes you happy, it not only makes it better for you, but you add to that energy of joy. It's like you become like a little beacon of happiness amidst a bunch of inflammation, right? The more happy people there are, the better.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And what's last in your heart to share with us?
That really, really good things are coming. You can have what you want. And because there is such a wind of change at our back right now, anything you do now to make your life better, it's like triple word score. There's a huge universal push for change right now. Like it's the push is so big that even people who don't want change are being kind of pushed, dragging, and screaming, right, into change. So anything you do now is going to reap huge rewards towards creating a better future for you and everyone.
Michelle, I'm so grateful for you, who you are, your exquisite sharing from your heart today. There's so much here, friends, family. Let's look at this one again and again and share it. There's just such great wisdom and depth and transmission for us to be able to infuse ourselves with light and belief and self-love and bring us into our alignment. So thank you, Michelle. All my love. I'm looking forward to connect again. And friends, visit MichelleMastersNLP.com.
Thank you.
All my love. I'll see you
Bye-bye.
soon.